If you haven't ever seen a refinery, they're these huge cities of vessels and towers that go 200-300 feet in the air, and we have to look at all of this. How do I get the inspector that data in a meaningful way? Our drone service provider, they take all of those pictures, then turn it into a photogrammetry model. And then VIRM can ingest all of that, where the inspector that has no idea how this happened or what this even is, they just know, I see a 3D model of the asset, and I see images, and do their inspection. We didn't sprinkle a little bit of technology into a current work process. We completely changed the work process, and the folks that feel like the drone's not going to do as good a job as the inspector did, I'd say, no, the inspector's going to do a better job doing what he already knew how to do, leveraging this technology.
And there's so many different methods of data capture today that can really drive forward these solutions in digital twinning. Not only capturing and storing and aggregating all of this data that we have, but getting it into this cloud location where you can share it with all of your team. Then you really open yourself up to a world of possibility where you can bring in your source business systems and tie in all of that data that your teams are working with on a day-to-day basis, so that all of that information that's been really segregated and existing in disparate systems can be pulled back in to that one single source of truth. 90% of the world's data has been created in the last 2 years. We're talking millions of terabytes of data. Now is really important to be able to organize that data and make sure that we're creating these systems and these platforms that allow us to access it, to share it, to consume it, and to create visual workflows so that we're bringing those efficiencies back to the site.
My name is Josh Burrows. I am the Digital Reality Ecosystem DRE Business Venture Manager. Whatever that means, I guess I'll get more into that later. Thanks for Kyle and Am and Nick for letting me get up on the stage and share in this vision.
Thanks, Josh. My name is Meaghan Snethledge. I'm Senior Client Success Executive with a company called VIRM. Really pleased to be here and grateful for the opportunity to share the stage with my friend Josh. For those of you who have worked with Josh, you know what a visionary he is. So it's been a real privilege for us to work together with him and execute on his ideas and bringing solution to the real world and to the site. So we also want to say a huge thank you to Matt and the RCN team for really creating this environment here where we can all come together and collaborate with industry. The networking has been incredible, and we've already had so many inspiring conversations over the last couple of days, and it's our first year here, and it definitely won't be the last. So thank you to you guys for creating this culture here that we can all participate in. So I'm going to dive in a little bit and talk to you about digital twin and what we're doing at VIRM, and then I'm going to hand it over to Josh to really dive into this Air 3D inspections with AR solution. But I just want to level set a little bit. So for those of you guys who don't know who VIRM is or what we do, we are a reality-first, data-centric digital twin. Let me just try this clicker. How are we doing? Okay, perfect. We're good. Before I dive into a little bit about what we're doing and the how we're creating digital twins today, I just want to frame out the conversation with a little statistic that really kind of captures the importance of why we need to talk about contextualization in the real world. And that is, so the human brain actually processes visual data 60,000 times faster than we do, textual data. So I just want that to sink in a little bit. And that really kind of hones in on the importance of why we need visualization and contextualization. So 60,000 times faster with visual data. So when VIRM kind of at our inception, I just want to talk about, four key elements that we have, really dived into to establish digital twin. And one of these, primary or foundational pinch points or pain points that we're experiencing in industry that we wanted to really address was this asset visualization and data aggregation piece. So, you've heard a lot of conversations over the last couple of days kind of surrounding this topic, and that's because it is a really important and vital piece to the conversation we need to talk about. So I was on LinkedIn last week, and there was actually a post that kind of an industry specialist had put out there, and it was a really simple concept, and he just said, nobody actually asked for a digital twin. He just left it at that. And I was really offended. I took it really personally. But then I sat back and I thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, you know what? That's not the rule. I mean, of course, there's exceptions. We do have clients and customers and, industry partners who come to us or, come to, digital twinning with a really mature digital adoption strategy, depending on where they're at in their life cycle. But At Virum, often we do find that partners or clients are coming to us and just wanting to talk about the fact that they say, listen, our organization is investing, millions of dollars, so much money, time and resources in capturing all of this data, whether it's 1D, 2D, 3D data, we're talking about 2D, 3D CAD models, point clouds, photogrammetry, meshes, and actually having nowhere where they can get it into the hands of their users and to their organizations. There's nowhere to share it. It's really just handcuffed, often on hard drives or somebody's SharePoint or desktop. So we wanted to talk about that or address that kind of as a foundation to what we do at Virum in the digital twin space. So what we did was we created this kind of single pane of glass where you can embed and import all of these different data sources into one environment and really begin to consume and understand what's happening on your site. So, you can begin to compare reality with reality, reality to CAD. You can open up, your photogrammetry, see it all right there in the same environment. And also then, access your plot plans or your PNIDs. So unlocking this, experience or opportunity to really consume the data that you have at your asset or at your site in one environment, just delivered, pretty profound value that is still a key factor in what we're doing today. So what does that mean? So let's say traditionally you are working on, you've got a PNID open in front of you. It's either printed out on your desk or you're viewing it on your platform or your computer. And you're trying to look at a system or a circuit and you're identifying a specific pump that you're interested in. Well, when you deploy digital twin and you have all these data sets there accessible for you, you can actually see where that pump or that system lives in space. And that's a pretty powerful thing. So you know what equipment's around it, how it relates to the other, pieces or parts of your facility, and really where that's located in space without having to go to site and verify that it's there. So that's great. Okay, now you know that you've got a pump, you know where it is in your facility, you've got all this data, great. Everybody can access it. But there's a next piece that needed to come into play here, and that is bringing in your asset tag list, your master tags, your unique identifiers that we have, already accessible and, that exist for all of these pieces of equipment that you might have in your facility. So ingesting that and embedding it into the digital twin, and something that we're really excited about is that you don't actually need your CAD model. Traditionally in digital twins, there was a huge reliance on using your CAD models to bring in that metadata and actually tag and identify that equipment. But what we're doing today is actually bringing those tags and identifying that equipment directly in the point cloud or the mesh or whatever it may be. So you can really deliver that reality first, data-centric digital twin just with your reality capture. So you're working directly off of what exists in your site today. So that's been a huge accelerator, I think, for digital twin and how we can bring solution to brownfield assets. So bringing in that master tag list, let's go back to the story. We're talking about this pump or this specific circuit. And now, okay, it's great. Now you've got this pump, where it exists in space, but not only that, that that's pump A1026B or whatever it's called. And you can start to identify this and create relationships within your asset and in your facility. And when you're talking about this at scale, some of these major facilities have hundreds of thousands of tags. So you're really creating a network of information that allows you to continue to contextualize. And I know that word, I can hear the groans coming from the audience already. We're sick of that punch word, but it is important to talk about contextualization in that manner. So now where do we go with this? Once you have all of that equipment tagged in your digital twin in reality, then you really open yourself up to a world of possibility where you can bring in your source business systems and tie in all of that data that your teams are working with on a day-to-day basis, depending on what use case or pinch points you want to address. So we're talking about SAP work orders, we're talking about permits, we're talking about IoT sensor data, OSI Pi, you name it, we can tie it back, including your data lakes, so that all of that information that's been really segregated and existing in disparate systems throughout your organization can be pulled back in to that one single source of truth, and you're working out of a reality condition. So now you can click on pump A1026B, whatever, And within 2 clicks, you have, all of this information accessible at your fingertips that can really enable you to create really powerful, data-driven decisions for your organization. So where do we go with that next? Okay, great. We've got all of this information. Everything's connected. It's integrated. I know what's happening on site. I want to bring this back now to what we do with use cases. So, bringing digital twin to this point where you have reality in front of you, you have your models in front of you, if they're accessible, if they're available, or if they're as built. You have your business systems connected and your 2D data. You can really unlock a whole world of potential for delivering solution to the end user and creating workflows based around pain points that you're seeing on site because you have all of this access to data. Now, I think Todd said yesterday in one of the panels, they were talking about innovation in creating a culture of innovation. It was a really fantastic panel talk. And he said something that stuck with me, and it kind of made me think about this use case or this scenario that we're talking about, that innovation is actually an output, not an input. And our CTO, Rob, would probably slap my hand for saying that, given how much work they put into developing our platform. But, really, when you bring a digital twin to this level and you can create an environment where, you have access to all of your data, that's when the innovation really starts to set in. And we can work with the people like Josh, who have pain points, who have a real world need for that data. And we can create these efficient workflows that, people can work visually based out of reality and drive a lot of value. So I don't know where I put my clicker. So just to kind of summarize this story here, this gives you a little bit of an idea of what that actually looks like. And you'll see some videos when Josh presents here in a couple minutes that'll give you kind of a clearer snapshot of what it looks like to work visually out of a digital twin. But what you can see here kind of on the top left is a point cloud. That's your existing site. And then towards kind of the center, you can see now you've got your point cloud, but you've also got a CAD model displayed there. So you're seeing 2 different types of data set displayed in reality conditions. You can also see it's quite small there, but kind of on the center at the bottom, you have a construction progress report. So you've got these analytics, this layer of analytics that comes into play here too, once you have all of this data. And then you can also see you have access to a PNID. So you can really start to compare and contextualize all of these different types of data and understand what's happening on your site. So I hope that gives you guys kind of an understanding of how we got to where we are with Theorem and delivering these workflow and persona-based solutions to users. But I'm going to hand it off to Josh now to dive into the inspections.
All right. Should I figure this out? All right. So I introduced myself as a business venture manager, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself and what that means to me. So from my perspective, representing my company, the reason we're doing this is not to play with cool toys, right? This is a business. We're here to make money. How can we leverage the technology to be more efficient, to make more money, to do something different and better than we were doing it before? And Kyle and Em showed lots of examples, and Meaghan shared examples: inspection, turnaround, capital projects. You really have to dive into individual problems, and by solving problem A, you might find value in problem B, C, D, whatever, but you really have to go in, and I've heard multiple people on this stage this week echo that same vision, which is great, because we're here to solve problems. So my background, I was an aircraft mechanic before I went to college. I started in ExxonMobil and a Beaumont refinery, and I've spent my entire career, almost 20 years, in manufacturing. Piping, pressure vessel design, turnarounds, inspection, fixing broke stuff, right? And throughout the entire time, trying to figure out, how do I do this better? How do I do this in a different, more effective way? And there was lots of IT input throughout the years. Sometimes we embraced it. Sometimes we said, get out of here, that's a distraction. And kind of somewhere along that journey, I found myself leveraging these tools and partnering up with the digital reality ecosystem team, and it's been a really fun journey. So I think rather than talking to you about the 15 or 30 use cases we're doing, I really just want to take one specific use case and talk about how we leverage the technology to do that. And I think it's really important. I really like the use case we chose because it is an ecosystem. It is a relationship or it is a collection of relationships with people that are willing to work open and integrate between. And I'm really good at this, and you're really good at that. How do we put them together into a platform that can show it all to us? And so that ecosystem consists of a lot of people that I can't see because the light's bright. It's probably shining off my bald head, but a lot of those people are in the audience, or they're out there, and we've got drone service providers, laser scanning vendors, and service visualization platforms like Virum and others that really work well together to let people do what they're good at to solve a problem. So the example I want to talk about is inspection of elevated assets. So if you haven't ever seen a refinery, there are these huge cities of vessels and towers that go 200-300 feet in the air. And we have to look at all of this because there's corrosive products, there's corrosion, external corrosion, and you got to get up close and look at all this stuff at some frequency because it's really important to us. And this is where my passion comes in, is I want to prevent the incidents. I want to keep the product inside the pipe. And to do that, we got to do all these inspections. So how do we do that today? We crawl around the platforms, the access points we can. We climb ladders, we climb stairs. We use binoculars. We use man lifts and JLGs and airlifts. And there's something that I wanted to share, an example called a crane basket. So if you didn't know, there's a thing called a crane basket. It looks like a shark cage, and they hook a crane to it, and they put me in one of these things and lifted me 200 feet in the air, and I don't like heights. So I had a really heart-to-heart conversation with the crane operator. I told him I generally have a sense of humor, but in this case, I do not have a sense of humor. No swinging or spooling down of the crane. But at the end of the day, majority of this is scaffolding, and that is a long process, and it's an expensive process, and it's a risky process where you have to you're not going to scaffold the entire thing, so you have to get your key points, and then you have people out there manipulating boards and climbing and tying off with harnesses and all of that, or we're doing rope access, which you can see in the video, where people are got ropes and they're lowering themselves down. All of these are risky. So technology, where does technology come in? So about 5 years ago, drones got introduced, and they were kind of new, and we got a lot of red tape, so we had to get through all that. How do we get a drone out here? And then once we got through that, we were really excited. We got, instead of me in a shark cage 200 feet in the air, we've got this little drone flying around. And the way I can view that is on the vendor's computer as a 10-minute video. Maybe I get the video, and as that drone starts to go into weird places, I lose context of what I'm looking at. And so we get that, we get thousands of images, and at the end of the day, I still have a job to do. I have an inspector that needs to look at the asset and determine if it's fit for service. So, solution one, enhanced drone inspections. So, and this is where we start to get into this ecosystem. So I have a few vendors that provide a drone service to me. They know the area, they're local, they go up, they capture the data for me, but they try to hand it to me now, and it's massive files, right? They took 30,000 images in an hour of this furnace that we're looking at here. Well, how do I get the inspector that data in a meaningful way? Well, first, how do I even transfer the storage? So we have a partner or a vendor that we have a relationship with that does storage of our 3D assets in a meaningful way. So we have a project ID or a job number. They assign our chosen drone service provider. They take all of those pictures, they load it into this platform, and from there I can give other folks access to it. So I can give it to somebody to process that data and turn it into a photogrammetry model, right? And then Virum can ingest all of that into what you're seeing on the screen, where the inspector that has no idea how this happened or what this even is, they just know, I see a 3D model of the asset and I see images, and I can click on the image that's contextualized in space and see where it is, and do their inspection. So it's a collaboration tool that lets sites that don't have access to all these tools put it in one place where somebody can use it to do a job. But we didn't feel like we were done yet, and here's why. In this particular case, I have a unit inspector. The photogrammetry model is a representation of reality, but the model itself is not good enough to look at and say, I think this thing is good, I didn't see anything disturbing. You really need to look at the high definition image. But again, it's 30,000 images. So now that you know where that image is in space, it's still 30,000 images. How do I actually take this and achieve my goal, which is where we went to the next step. So artificial intelligence enhanced drone inspections. So now I've got all of these images in my inspection data file tool. I can assign one of many vendors that we've partnered with on artificial intelligence, and they take those 30,000 images and they turn it into 20, 30 findings. We color code them red, yellow, green to match the severity of the finding. And now what I can give the unit inspector is the 3D model of the asset with some highlighted points like you can see there. And Virum's done a great way of giving us multiple ways to visualize that. We can just click on each one of them and open it up and see the picture with the description. We can get that as a list view and sort on it. And what we're able to find now is through that mess of 30,000 images, right there on the screen, you see that's a stack 200 feet in the air with missing bolts. Right? I want bolts in that stack. and I don't think there's a chance, even with a JLG or man basket or whatever, that we would even see those little things like that. So we didn't sprinkle a little bit of technology into a current work process. We completely changed the work process. And the folks that feel like, hey, the drone's not going to do as good a job as the inspector did, I'd say, no, the inspector is going to do a better job doing what he already knew how to do, leveraging this technology. So we armed him with the capability to fly around in the air, see everything, and it's just completely changing the way we did that. And we've taken, this was one of the first pilots we've done, and now we're using this to go out and get a whole lot of data quickly in a meaningful way. We got tired of calling it that thing we did with that heater, so we came up with some names we threw out there. AI results in 3D, Air 3D is what we're calling it right now, so it seems to be sticking. We'll see, give it a couple months, maybe we'll get something better. So just moving on, just another example to show you we didn't do it just on one thing. This is about 150 foot of pipe rack in between all the units. We have miles of this, and as you can see, it's complicated spaghetti bowl of piping. This particular piping is in an area of cooling tower overspray. So if you're an oil and gas guy, you know that means accelerated corrosion. So is it reasonable for us to scaffold miles of piping to do this? We would like to, because it's really important to me, and where my passion about this is not as much in the technology as it is, I have to make sure we don't leave one of those spots in a position for degradation where there's a leak and we have an incident and somebody I know is injured, or we have impact to the community. That's what I'm chasing. How do I do that? Well, now I have a way to find those things quicker, and I feel like I'm not leaving anything out there just because we couldn't get the right angle to look at it. So really excited to share this with you. Just one example of how we took, I think there were 6 vendors involved in this process, or six folks that were willing to work in this open, agnostic way. And in doing this one example, just to show you the journey that we're on, is doing this, you learn, how do I get this data set into this tool that this person can look at. And that's where all that interoperability, and I'm not a tech guy. I don't understand half this stuff. They're laughing at me over there, right? Like, I like, you guys figure that part out. They just tell me what to tell them to put it in so that this guy can look at it. And that's where all the global practices and standardization, and why I think this whole, the concept of this reality capture network is so great, because there are problems in the world that we're trying to solve. And it's not going to be one vendor that does this, because we've tried that, and it's not gonna work that way. So appreciate the time, and turn it back over to Meaghan.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, so just want to kind of summarize and wrap up the conversation by talking about a few of the trends that we're seeing in industry that's really enabled us and enabled different partners and this ecosystem that we're all living in to bring forward these reality first visual way of working solutions to our sites and to our users. So the number one thing here, of course, that we're seeing as a trend over the last couple of years, especially, is this affordable data capture. So, there's a number of fantastic partners that we work with as well, and that our clients work with. And there's so many different methods of data capture today that it can become, really quite easy to go out and actually scan your facility, scan your unit, or whatever it might be, to create those, reality first point clouds or meshes or photogrammetry or whatever it might be that can really drive forward these solutions in digital twinning. The second one that's really important that we talk about, and I know this has been a topic of discussion as well over the last couple of days, but is this, cloud first approach. And so, the shift from on-prem or server-based storage to this cloud-hosted kind of scenario that we're all moving towards has been really fundamental and really powerful of, not only capturing and storing and aggregating all of this data that we have, but getting it into, this cloud location where you can share it globally across the world with all of your teams. So having that access to the information that, organizations are investing in. Again, the data aggregation piece, I don't think I need to beat this dead horse much more. We understand kind of the importance here and what that looks like. So just continuing to support that and making sure that we have these open agnostic systems that allow us to bring in all of these different file formats together, to make the most of our data that we have available to us. Contextualization, again, using those master tag lists, bringing those identifiers, those unique identifiers into your systems, into your point clouds, into your CADs, your mesh, whatever it might be, but really being able to open the relationships between your pieces of equipment and your systems or whatever, and creating those connections there so that you can start to bring in data.
And to add to that is hard.
That is not easy.
That is really hard, and that is where a ton of the value lies. And at this point in the journey, that's where we're really spending a bunch of time and effort and getting that master data registry tied back to the 2D and the 3D. And there's a lot of structure and organization to data that wasn't built to do that originally. Absolutely. And it's been a journey, but that's not easy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to talk about having, concise and well-organized data, but, achieving that can be a whole nother thing. So I'm sure we'll hear more about that in the pain points panel that's coming tomorrow. But, so once we have all of this data contextualized, we have it stored on a cloud, we have it accessible, we're really starting to leverage all of this information that we have available. But when we look at where the industry is going and some of the tools and techniques that, Josh is sharing with us today, there's a whole new world of opportunity when we start to apply, a generative or predictive AI model. And, taking that consumption or leverage of data to that next level where you're starting to track your historicals, your real world data, your historicals, everything that we have, and feeding it through these models so we can start to make, more empowered decisions with, predictions and insights that we can start to build out through using these AI ML tools. Data abundance, of course. 90% of the world's data has been created in the last 2 years. We're talking millions of terabytes of data, and it's just continuing to produce more and more. So starting to address these considerations or these pain points now is really important so that we're setting ourselves up as an industry to be able to organize that data and make sure that, you know, we're creating these systems and these platforms that allow us to access it, to share it, to consume it, and to create visual workflows so that we're bringing those efficiencies back to the site, I think is a really important piece of this. There's one thing that's not on here that I do want to touch on, and Josh talked about it as well, but that's really leveraging the ecosystem of industry partners. This is a huge piece of the puzzle. You know, none of us are experts in everything, and there's so many of us that are subject matter experts, you know, in what we do. And so it's really important that we, you know, recognize when and where and how we can bring in other partners so that we're really driving forward value and creating these solutions that are going to bring us all together forward into this kind of new reality capture age, visual way of working type of scenario. So again, it's platforms like this and environments like this that really allow those conversations to happen. And we just need to continue to brainstorm together and collaborate and come up with more exciting solutions.
Yeah, it was fun. We were sitting backstage watching the Dre video, and like in that little 2-minute clip, we were like, oh, that's that. We were with that. Like, and there's people in this room that I'm sure saw, hey, that's
mine.
That's mine. We did that. We did that together, and it's that ecosystem. I didn't understand what the heck a digital reality ecosystem was when I met these guys. Ecosystem's the best word. It really is. It's a collection of people working together to do all of this. So.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Well, I think that wraps it up. Yeah, thank you guys so much for your time.